All right. So my name is Alejandro Rodriguez. I'm the Assistant Director of Active Inclusion and Diversity within the Office of Admissions. So we're also in the same area, but just work for different areas. Same, projects and such and much more. But I'm going to jump right into it. I know we don't have a lot of time. Right here, you'll see that it mentions all the admission requirements. But I do want to mention that you can apply for free right now. So if you're interested in applying to UNL, you can apply for free using the code NU for NE until October 31st. So that's the last day you can apply. So if you're interested in applying for free for the spring, for the summer, or next fall, make sure you use that code. If you haven't applied, take advantage of it. You can also apply to UNK, UNL, NCTA, and then UNO all at the same time through the shared app. So that's the best way to apply. We've had some students who sometimes apply to each one separately, and they spend about 30 minutes each on each application. Don't be that student. Unless you want to spend like 30 minutes on each one, then you can definitely do that if you want. But that way it saves you time. I know time is very important for many of us. And then once you're applying, it's going to have you self-report your background information, your classes that you've taken. So right here, it's going to ask you for those performance requirements. You actually need both of those. So when you are in your last semester of college, yes, question?
I'm going to put it up on the screen here for you real quick.
So the code is actually NU for NE. So if you want to write it down, I didn't bring little things, but you can write it down. So Abel's going to write it on the board right here, but you do need a 2.0 GPA from your last semester to get in. You do need a 2.0 cumulative GPA. So make sure, as long as you have those, you're guaranteed to get in. I know separate colleges like the College of Engineering and a couple of other ones might have some elevated requirements, so that might look differently. You do need all these core courses. So if you have less than 24 credit hours, this is what you're going to need. You need 4 units of math, 4 units of English, 3 of social sciences, 2 of natural sciences, 2 of world language. Those world language have to be the same one. So if you take Spanish 101, it has to be Spanish 102. It can't be Spanish 101 or French 102. It has to be the same language. Vice versa, if you take French, you have to have 2 years of that. And then for math, it also looks completely different as well. So you need Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry, and then something that builds upon Algebra 2. So make sure if you ever are interested in the College of Engineering, College of Architecture, sometimes they recommend that you take calculus, pre-calculus. That way you're ready when it comes to taking courses here. So if you have any questions about what math course should I be taking, let me know. We can go talk about it and such. I don't know all the requirements. Some are very specific, but we can definitely help you out with that or connect you to the right person. All right. And then a couple more things to know. So when it comes to the application for admission, obviously you're going to need that application. Like I said, it is free. You are going to need a high school transcript if you have less than 24 credit hours. If you have more, don't worry about it. You won't have to send in that high school transcript unless you're interested in the College of Engineering or College of Architecture. So then we'll actually require one. So you'll also have to submit your current transcript, any additional transcripts. So if you've taken any other courses, like let's say at another community college, we're going to need those transcripts as well. But if you don't, or if you haven't taken any other courses at another community college, don't worry about that, okay? And then there is the application fee. It is $45, but like I said, you have until October 31st to apply for free. If you will, so just make sure you apply. And if you have any questions about that whole process, I know it's pretty quick and simple, but it can get confusing. So let us know. And then I'll let Abel take over right here. So that's kind of the whole process of admission. Abel will speak more on MyRed and what you'll have to be aware of for that.
Yes, thanks, Alejandro. So as he mentioned, those are our first 2 steps, right? Finding out where are our requirements, what's missing, what do we need to maybe get so that we are going to be admissible upon applying, and then going through and moving through the application process, right? Application process, I'd like to mention, is very straightforward, fairly easy. The Parts that can kind of be a little bit trickier will be kind of the transcript parts and things like that. So if there's any questions on that, don't hesitate in reaching out. Better to just get those questions answered so that you're not having to kind of extend your process of getting admitted. I think we always like to share that our goal is to try to get a result to you all in at least 72 business hours so that you know what is that admission decision. Anything sooner than that, even better, right? So if you haven't heard of that or haven't heard of, wait, what is my admission decision? Then we need to check into my MyRed account. And so your MyRed account would be considered what is your student account here at the University of Nebraska. So that's going to allow you to look at, okay, where is my at as far as admissions process? What documents are they still requesting? If that's a transcript, if that's something further. Additionally, looking at, hey, submitting some scholarship applications once you've now arrived here at the university. This is, again, going to be your place for getting familiar with everything that is student records, student transcripts, student accounts, things like that, right? So the first things that you will actually get after you apply is a couple of emails, one letting you know, hey, thanks for your application. And then a next that's going to give you your NUID number. Very important that you find that email when you do apply, but you can write that NUID number down and you can kind of use that as you're logging into what is your MyRed account. You also be provided this username as well that you can use to kind of log in and out of that, again, MyRed account. But this platform, as I start to kind of go through some of the other things, will help make sense as to kind of what is accessible when you, again, jump on your MyRed account. Your MyRed, as I mentioned, will give you access to scholarships. I think one of the scholarships that you all have maybe worked on just this week was the personal statement, the scholarship statement itself. Going through your MyRed account online, that's going to be a location that you can go through and get that submitted. Likewise, there are going to be other scholarship opportunities for our students out on that MyRed account, whether that be the diversity enhancement applications, that be current student scholarships for yourselves. Hey, now I'm a Husker going through my first semester out here. Now I'm transitioning into my spring. We want to start looking for scholarships that following year. It's definitely going to be available for you. So looking at some of our deadlines out here, if we are a resident of Nebraska, that deadline is going to be for us if we're applying for fall 2023, looking at March 1st, right? So definitely still have some time to go through and get that submitted. Spring application just closed. Again, looking at that fall term, definitely want to jump out there, give yourself a little bit of time, and more so get familiar with what is the application, what are the requirements. Some of those applications will have specific specific questions for their scholarships, and they're asking for like a short essay, 250 word, 500 word essay that they may be looking for, right? So maybe short, but it's also very difficult to try to put a essay together with so few words and try to promote yourself, right? Afterwards, right? My encouragement is always then to submit FAFSA. Quick show of hands. How many of you are feeling that you're going to be submitting FAFSA? Familiar with it? A little bit. So I hopefully this encourages you a little bit more, right? The FAFSA itself is open. It always opens October 1st. Weirdly enough, it is first come, first serve, right? So that's why I always encourage our students to, once that application becomes available, submit that FAFSA. On that FAFSA, you're able to submit that to 10 institutions that you'd like to consider that you've already applied to. That way they're receiving your FAFSA application and then they can move forward with processing that information. In doing so, you are then meeting what would be priority dates, right? Again, application's already open, but as you're seeing that priority date here for the University of Nebraska, it's actually been pushed back a little bit and now it's May 1st. So you are seeing April 1st out here, but it is May 1st now. And so what that is saying is that anyone that does submit their FAFSA prior to May 1st is going to then get what is offered on that FAFSA application, right? So it's going to let you know, hey, you're eligible for this Pell Grant amount, and making sure that I get that submitted before May 1st. I know then that Pell Grant amount is going to be secured for myself and is going to be available. If it is after May 1st, though, now we are running into, we're only going to be able to offer only be able to offer from what is available. That is, again, where we're starting to get into the first come, first serve kind of phase of what is financial aid. As you get into the summer, especially, that's when the financial aid dollars will start to get limited even more. So again, really want to encourage us to go through, submit that FAFSA as soon as possible. And in doing so, it is going to help us understand what are we eligible for one of the things that you could be potentially eligible for would be the Nebraska Promise. The Nebraska Promise is available to our Nebraska residents who will go on and attend one of these schools, University of Nebraska schools. So UNL, UNO, UNMC, NCTA out in Curtis. Again, if you are attending one of those institutions, Nebraska resident, you've submitted your FAFSA, you may be potentially eligible for what would be this Nebraska Promise that would then cover 15 credit hours at those institutions per semester per year. This doesn't carry into the summer. However, there is summer financial aid that is available. So if you are finding out that, hey, I'm Pell Grant eligible right now going into your academic year, you are likely also going to be Pell Grant eligible moving into your summer, so that you can also take some summer classes and get those fully covered for yourself. I think full Pell for summer would be about six credit hours, so about 2 classes over that summer period, right? The great thing about the summer period is that there's different terms, so you can kind of split those classes up and also take those in person, online, whatever is that preference for yourself. But this Nebraska Promise, again, is only available through the academic year. And what you will see is that in order to qualify for the Nebraska Promise, you again need to complete the FAFSA before May 1st. That FAFSA is going to be a part of the Nebraska Promise and ensuring that, hey, this is an individual that is demonstrating financial need. One thing that is very clear within the Nebraska Promise is that any family that does have an adjusted gross income of $65,000 or less, they will automatically know that they will qualify for what is the Nebraska Promise. If we are a family whose perhaps adjusted gross income is beyond that is $65,000, you could still potentially be eligible for the Nebraska Promise. However, we are using the FAFSA to find out if we are eligible or not. Essentially, how we find out if, again, we're above that $65,000 and we submit the FAFSA, if you learn that you are Pell Grant eligible through the FAFSA, you will also be eligible here for the Nebraska Promise. So it's either being Pell Grant eligible or having that family adjusted gross income of $65,000 or less. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Yes, sir. So all you would have to do, I'm assuming then that you've already submitted your FAFSA, right? So all you have to do, so remember when you were going through your FAFSA and asked you, what schools do you want to submit this FAFSA to? You just need to log back into that portion of your FAFSA and then select UNL, UNO, whichever other schools that you are thinking about, right? And in doing that, that school then is going to receive that application for you, and then they're going to be able to process that for you. So you don't have to reapply with the FAFSA. All you have to do is log back in there and just say you want to send this to some other schools, right? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can always go back in there and add some more schools. Again, you have up to 10 schools that you can go through and add. So if you are considering any of those Nebraska universities, again, UNL, UNO, Curtis, UNMC, please list them on there. That way they can start getting that information for you. And again, this promise is going to be available at any one of those institutions. Yes. Yep, and I was about to jump into that, so I appreciate you mentioning that. Yes. And nope, it will be until the completion of your bachelor's degree. Yep. So as long as you are, and as you see here, it's that 2.5 GPA, right? And also satisfactory academic progress. So we do have to demonstrate that we are working towards that degree completion while also maintaining that 2.5. But as long as you're reapplying for FAFSA, because that's something that you do have to apply for every year, and you're Pell Grant eligible, you will continue to receive the Nebraska Promise. And when I code it, actually going to be like, that code. You do need that code. It's about I think it's a big number that's I think I already know that, but make sure you enter that. Yeah. So, and what Troy mentioned, we do have a process known as verification, right? So once we do submit our FAFSA and we do find out we are Pell Grant eligible, 65,000 or less. Sorry, I should have mentioned this too. So if you are looking at your federal income taxes and they are 1040, so typically what is traditionally submitted for ourselves, line 11 would show you the adjusted gross income. And that line there Again, if that line is below 65,000 or less, you then know automatically that you're going to be qualifying for that Nebraska Promise. But so now you've submitted your FAFSA, you learned that you are Pell Grant eligible, you're going to be potentially receiving that, or you're going to be receiving the Nebraska Promise, potentially be selected for this process known as verification. And so verification is a process that is done randomly. It is done so that we can, one, just verify that the information on a FAFSA is being submitted correctly. Any information on there that may be contradicting to one another. We may ask, hey, this on your FAFSA application, you may be listing your household size as 5. However, here on your taxes, it looks like you've only got 4 people listed, 3 dependents, and then yourself, right? And so that might be something that comes into question where they're just asking, hey, what's going on, right? These are also opportunities, though, for your estimated family contribution to potentially be recalculated as well, right? Because it could be a situation where, during that tax year, you maybe did only have 4 in your household. However, you just had a kid that was born or someone in that family joined that family. That's another reason that could be, hey, my household size increased. Yes, my taxes don't show that because they're 2 years back, but currently I do have 5 in household. And that is a situation where that EFC could be decreased because now we have more people in the household, right? So this process is two-way in that, yes, the institution does want to go through and verify any information again that, hey, might be contradictory to one another. Maybe we submitted something that was conflicting information within that FAFSA. But again, it is also that opportunity to maybe have things that are recalculated for ourselves potentially so that, again, we know, hey, I'm getting the EFC for myself, it's getting calculated, and that is the correct estimation of what my family can kind of contribute. So as I was mentioning, right, the process itself is kind of randomized. It will go through, and if it does readjust your EFC, it could potentially readjust it in the sense of, again, got a larger family, I got more people in college, things like that, that all could affect it. I also want to mention that, as you're going through this process and you are being selected for verification, always reach out to our offices. Husker Hub is very good at answering those questions, helping you through that process, and making sure that we're submitting verification documents. One is very important. I mentioned the deadline of submitting our FAFSA before May 1st. We also have a verification deadline of June 1st. So after you've submitted everything and that you're selected for verification, you do have a timeline there of having to submit all those documentations before June 1st so that you can officially secure your financial aid offers. If you are someone who is selected and not selected for verification, you'll likely just go through, get your FAFSA, it'll get sent to the university institution, and then your financial aid award letter will be distributed out to you. If you are selected for verification, this award letter will be put on hold until those documents have been completed and that process of verification itself has been completed. Again, I encourage you to work with anyone within Husker Hub, at those institutions within their financial aid offices, student account offices. Those verification documents, they could, if we're not answering those correctly or and turning those incorrectly, they could potentially extend our process even further in the sense of maybe they asking for a different or another verification document as well, right? So it is a process that is ongoing. And it's one that, again, you need to go back into your MyRed account, make sure, hey, I've not been selected. I am selected for verification. What are then kind of my next steps for that process?
And if that shows up, and we'll fill up on your MyRed. So it's gonna show up there. My entirely sure if that out, I've got that email. But if you're not getting that email, so you will have to enter an email to create an account. Sometimes some things will go through spam. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting anything that's going on, reach out to us or check your spam first. And if you don't see anything, let us know. That way we can make sure everything's going through.
Absolutely. And with that as well, right? As we are applying for financial aid, we always got to recognize that we're using tax years 2 years past, right? And so that may not always be representative of what is maybe our current situation or what is kind of situation now presently, right? And so with that in mind, if we realize that, hey, we may for some reason aren't Pell Grant eligible, but we also know that our family situation changed from, this year would be 2021 tax year from currently, that's important information for us to know, right? there's a process known as special circumstances where we go through and we're basically appealing that financial aid, that FAFSA that was submitted, basically stating, yes, I recognize that on my FAFSA, this is the income level, the household size, things like that, that I responded with because of what was presented on my taxes. But right now, currently, that is not the situation. And so that process will allow us to go through, appeal, provide some additional supporting information that could, again, go back through, recalculate your estimated family contribution, that EFC, so that you could potentially fall back into Pell Grant eligibility. So those are processes that they're always advertised, right? It is a pretty extensive process of going through, getting and collecting all that information, but it is one that I share with you because it's worth knowing if in the case we do fall out of that Pell Grant eligibility and need to go through that process. The next thing though okay, so now we've submitted our FAFSA, we've turned in any verification documents. Now what you are going to be receiving is a financial aid award letter. And so when you are looking at this award letter, and you potentially were awarded the Nebraska Promise, I want to be clear that the award letter itself won't actually say any scholarship, any grant necessarily that says the Nebraska Promise, right? In the corner of your award letter, or even in the description of your award letter, it will say that you are a Nebraska Promise eligible student. So it might have like a little stamp that says Nebraska Promise on it, or in the, again, verbiage, your paragraph of your award letter, it will state that you are, again, Nebraska Promise eligible. And what you should be seeing there is that you should see then award offers, whether that be scholarships, institutional grants, that will total up to what is that Nebraska Promise amount. That Nebraska Promise amount is somewhere about $13,000. So for you as a student, we're awarded the Pell Grant. We perhaps get the full Pell Grant of $6,895. That is going to be included in my Nebraska Promise. So anything that's left over to get to that 13,000, that's where that institution is, again, plugging in institutional grants, institutional dollars, state dollars. So some of the institutional grants that you might see might be like a Nebraska Opportunity Grant that also gets applied into that promise. You might see a Nebraska Achievement Scholarship that, again, is offered by the university that will get plugged in there. So that, again, that package of your financial aid, your institutional dollars, scholarships, your state grants, financial aid, that again totals up to that amount of what is the Nebraska Promise of 13,000. We do have to take into consideration that EFC, right? So if our Nebraska Promise does tell us, or excuse me, our FAFSA does tell us that we have an estimated family contribution perhaps of 2,000, we are still Pell Grant eligible. However, that Nebraska Promise is going to take that family estimated contribution into account, and we'll take that 13,000 and reduce it to 11,000, right? Again, anticipating that the estimated family contribution is also going to be a part of that Nebraska Promise. So we do get quite a few of those questions. And so again, if you do have questions about your award letter, please don't hesitate in reaching out. Usually what I would always recommend to our students once they start to fill out the FAFSA and they've realized, hey, you are Pell Grant eligible, you're going to be there receiving the Nebraska Promise. What I really encourage them then is to start looking at external scholarship dollars, because now you've been maxed out at how much the institution itself can offer you. And so those external scholarships now, they're going to be able to accommodate for some of those additional expenses. They're going to be able to be stacked on top of anything that the university, state, institutional dollars, federal dollars have already been applied to.
And then I think that it won't show up as an Nebraska Promise in your MyRad, but it's gonna show up as a scholarship, like you said, like Nebraska. So don't freak out. I feel like, oh my gosh, they told me I was gonna get the Nebraska Promise, and it's not even in there. They're lying to me. It shows up different. So just remember that, like if you're in your MyRad account, and it's gonna show that. You do have to go and accept on it as well.
Yeah, it's very important. I think John, that was the next thing I was going to mention. Yes. He's absolutely right. Again, to reiterate that, because it does cause some confusion that, again, we're expecting a scholarship that says exactly the Nebraska Promise, right? Actually, I think in the award letters too, what it will say is that your Nebraska Promise commitment has been met. And so if you're reading your award letter, you're looking at that, it will let you know again that the award promise or that Nebraska promise commitment has been met. If you are confused with that letter, please don't hesitate in reaching out to the Husker Hub. They're going to be there. That's their job. They're there to help us understand what is that award letter and help us understand, how these things are going to be then applied to our cost of attendance once we get to the university. And as Alejandro alluded to, once you've started to receive your award letter, that final step will be to go back into your MyRed account and then accept those offers, right? Accept them. That way you're not having to kind of go back through and navigate, having to get them right back onto your account because we forgot to accept them or something like that, right? You will see loans out on your MyRed account as well. What I tell my students is that just leave them out there. You don't have to accept them, decline them. They're just going to hang out on their account all year. But if in the case something does occur and you need to take something out, that option is available for you, right? But again, the one thing that I always tell them is go into your MyRed, accept the scholarships and grants. That's the money that we don't need to pay back, do anything with, right? Outside of that, then let's jump in and look at what are going to be those external scholarships. But the next step here is then going to be the enrollment deposit. The enrollment deposit is deadline for anyone thinking fall 2023 would be May 1st. Essentially what this enrollment deposit is doing is it is securing your spot here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So in doing that, you are submitting a $250 deposit that says, I want to secure my position here as a student, thus allowing you to move forward with the other processes that would be the housing contract if you decide to live on campus, the new student enrollment process that will go through orientation, student enrollment. That $250 deposit, we do have a deferment of the enrollment deposit application form that our students can go through if they are Pell Grant eligible. So if you do submit that FAFSA and you find out that you are Pell Grant eligible in your MyRed account, there is going to be an application out there that you can go through, submit, basically provide your name, student ID number, NUID number, your reason for why you are submitting this application. It will then get processed and your $250 is deferred. And so what that means is that it is going to be deferred to your student bill, which at that time, any financial aid dollars, scholarship dollars, things like that will be used to cover that enrollment deposit. Alejandro, I think the application is available in their MyRed, right?
Yeah. You can do that. Up to NSCC, I can't do that.
No, you can. So if you were thinking I'm going to transfer, you'd want to go through that transfer process, right? And then submit that enrollment deposit, because that enrollment deposit, what it's going to do is secure your spot for the following year. So if you were considering transferring, you can definitely go through that process and again, submit that, right? Like Alejandro said, if you're thinking, yes, I'm pretty sure, I feel confident in that transfer, go through that process because you are going to start to see again, housing that's going to be available here November 1st. You wanted to start thinking about, I want to live on campus. That enrollment deposit deferment is going to allow you then to access that housing contract. Housing itself, it's always good to go ahead and do those things as soon as possible. We've changed the process a little bit so that we're able to be a little bit more equitable and like who gets the suites, the apartment styles, things like that. Those are always the more popular ones. Before it was always first come, first serve. So anyone that submitted it right in November, they always got it, right? So now it's more like blocks. So we still want you to encourage you to submit it as soon as possible. But in the summer, there'll be a couple different blocks that students can then be assigned to, and they're going to be notified. It's like, hey, you're going to be able to go in, sign up for housing, things like that, right? The other then is also going to be that enrollment deposit or the new student enrollment process, which is your orientation and your way of actually signing up for classes. And so for students thinking, hey, I want to go through and start enrolling for the University of Nebraska in the fall, this will probably happen for you more so in the late spring semester and then also summer. I believe there are a couple of dates NSC-wise still in the late spring, but then there'll be a lot more over the summer period, right? So that's when you're actually coming onto campus, you're meeting, going through kind of a small orientation, getting familiar with what are just some on-campus resources, what's a little small community, who are some other incoming students, things like that. but also you're sitting down and you are meeting with your academic advisor to start talking about what classes will I be taking that following year. One thing, which is the transfer credit, right? And I'll talk a little bit more about this here in a little bit, but one thing is that as you are applying and you're going through submitting your transcript, you're finding out your admission decision, you won't actually learn how your credit's going to transfer over until you've gone through now the enrollment process. So it is a process that does confuse students because they're hopeful and thinking, I'm going to learn how my credit's going to transfer, things like that, right? But not until you get into that enrollment process are we actually going through and starting to evaluate your transfer credit and starting to apply that then to now your degree program here at the University of Nebraska. And so completing these pre-advisement tasks is very important for that reason. So we have what is called the advising inventory, where you go through and you're submitting we have 10 different general electives. You're submitting of those 10 different general electives, what classes would I perhaps be interested in enrolling for, right? So for you, it's really time to sit down, look through the course catalog, try to identify which are those general electives, which of those general electives would I be interested in. For example, we have, writing composition class, right, would be one of our general electives where you're having to sit down, write. You can definitely take the general, English 151, 150, or you could go a little bit more extensive and find a class that's maybe a little bit more of interest to you, whether it be something about pop culture, things like that maybe, hey, that connects to me a little bit more. And it's also a writing class, right? So those are the type of options. Another one would be like a public speaking or communications class. For some of us, as a business major, that for me, I had to have a specific public speaking class that I needed to complete, right? For others of those classes, they can go through, select, okay, I don't actually want to have to do presentations in front of people. Maybe I just want to do video presentations of some sort. Those are options, right? So it's very important that when you're looking at that advising inventory, you're sitting down and you're really trying to understand, which courses are available for me as far as my general electives, but also which of those general electives are being required for my degree program. I believe later today, you're actually going to go through what is a 4-year degree plan and trying to understand how that looks like, right? And so that process will also help you in understanding how do I navigate my advising inventory to make sure that, one, I'm picking general electives that are of interest to me, and two, that I'm not enrolling in a class that I've already taken and I'm getting transfer credit for, right? This is also going to be it's going to serve for that purpose. You're going to be able to identify and discuss what classes you've taken at any other institution, and those classes and how they're going to be transferring in. So for me, I always encourage my students to sit down, go through this process of, it's my very last slide. So I'm going to jump to my very last slide and I'll come back. This process known as transferology. It's a resource that we have on our website. It's one, I think I also use the transfer equivalency list, but these two resources will allow you to look up your institution. So let's say, hey, I'm at University of Nebraska, Omaha. Allow you to look up the University of Nebraska, Omaha, what classes are offered at that university, and then how those classes are going to be potentially transferring over to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So in doing that, it's allowing you to understand, one, which of my general electives have I already met because of my transfer classes, and also which of these classes are already starting to fall into my degree program. As I mentioned before, the evaluation process for your credits isn't always the best. It's not always as seamless as we'd hope. So that information may not always be available for that advising appointment. And so it's best to just come in, be prepared for that advising appointment, know where some of this credit is going to fall. That way you can kind of chat with your advisor and let them know, hey, I've taken this class. This is how I see it transferring over. Does that sound right? Yes, Gary. Yeah. It is absolutely. I think with transferology, you do have to create an account. But the one I always choose, transferology is a little bit more extensive, expanded. I think they've gotten more of the updates as far as classes. I also like to use the transfer equivalency list though. It's a little bit quicker, kind of here's the classes that are offered at UNO, and here's a quick way of how they're going to be transferring over to Lincoln. So, here's the quick way of you to kind of understand what are the transfers. So I just looked up, as you may have saw, University of Nebraska Omaha, but here are again the classes that have already been evaluated and how they potentially might transfer over to the University of Nebraska. A quick thing, you'll see ID title on this left-hand side. That's always going to be of the institution that you looked up. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see UNL ID and then credits and then the course title, right? So one thing to know is that some institutions, I think like Metro Community College, their credits are, their classes, I think, are 4.5 scale. That's still going to transfer over at 3 credits, right? So that's still something to keep in mind as far as how those credits or how many credits you're also getting. And then this last column here, you'll actually see this ACE requirement. So that's letting you know which of our 1 of 10 general electives that's going to meet. So if I look at, let me jump down to an English class here real quick. So if I again jump down to English, and if I decided to take English Comp 1, English 1150 at UNO, that would transfer as English 150, 3 credits here at the university, and it would be writing inquiry, and it actually would meet your general elective 1. Here you'll find that there are going to be some classes that actually have 2 numbers in this last column. This class here, English 2350, Black Lit 1746 to 1939 will transfer over to UNL as English 244, 3 credit hours, African American literature. And now you have the choice of, do I want this to meet my general elective 5, or do I want this to meet my general elective number 9, right? So it allows you to kind of navigate that a little bit as well, of saying, you know what, I don't know that I like the electives or the classes in my number 5 general elective. I really like the ones that are in number 9. I'm going to select to have this apply to general elective 5, and I'm going to find something different for my general elective of 9, right? This will also work with your degree plans, but you do have to do a little bit more cross-referencing with those degree plans. Might have to look up a 4-year plan, see what classes might be offered or asked for you to complete within that 4-year plan, and then how that might transfer over to UNL as well. It's a very extensive process, but one that I would highly encourage y'all to do. I think we always have one another's best interest in mind, or we'd like to think so. And going into that meeting with your advisor as you're enrolling for classes would just be important for you to advocate for yourself, especially in saying, hey, I know you're asking me to take this general elective. However, I took this class out here at UNO, and I know that it's transferring into that general elective. So can we find something different, or is there a misunderstanding of what it actually is transferring over for myself, right? So last couple of things, just want to talk about the Center for Academic Success and Transition, CAS. They have awesome resources for our transfer students in the sense of just the newsletter that you might receive. So it's a great way of just trying to get you all connected, familiar with who are other transfer students here at the university, hopefully finding that community. I know it's always difficult that, as you're transferring in, communities, friendships, things like that have already started. And it's a little bit tougher to kind of insert yourself into those places when maybe some of those things have already formed, right? But this is a center who is dedicated to finding a space for our transfer students through a lot of different ways, whether, again, it be through that newsletter, some transfer events that they will have, socials, workshops, wanting to improve some study skills, improve that perhaps procrastinating or eliminating procrastinating, right? Those will be workshops and things like that they'll be able to offer. Success coaches as well. So just needing some assistance navigating just your university experience, understanding where are my resources, whether they'll be academic, personal. They are, again, going to be there to help answer any one of those questions in regards to that. RSO, student registered student organizations, which I believe you may have heard a little bit from already. Just a little bit of another way of you to get familiar with what is actually available. I think there's 500 some plus organizations here at UNL. And so it can be a little bit overwhelming trying to find your spot, your place, but they can definitely help guide you and help start that conversation of, what is potentially available for myself. Here are just some of the workshops that they'll be offering here for this fall term. Also wanted to just kind of share a little bit about their transfer section of their website. As you can kind of see, so just Center for Academic Success and Transition. Again, they're very dedicated to helping find a space, help you get connected here at the university, whether it be through the peer mentor program. Again, that newsletter. I'd encourage you to get attached to that newsletter. Just a good way to get any information that might be occurring on campus. Yes. Class presentation. Learn to create and deliver presentations as impactful as the great Ortho? Yep. Well, next week. But yes, so I guess, yeah, so you even got some direct links out here for your transfers. Got some direct links here for our transfer assistance community, RSO. So again, wanting to find some space out here, getting connected also to other transfer students, please check out CAS. Great way for you to get yourself to get familiar with them. And again, Transferology, don't forget about those resources to check out and make sure that you're advocating for yourself. But this is our hope for you is that, you go through and you celebrate, you have a grin, smile, just like this young man right here behind us, and celebrating your successes, your achievements, right? And your journey to getting to that degree path. So that's what we look forward to. And hopefully along the way, we can help get the experience that you're looking for.